The full and complete breath. Are you aware that this full and complete breath can heal many of today's ills? It can probably heal most of society's problems as well, but I know that's a bit too much of a grand claim. But let's just dive deep now into what I mean by all of this. You know already that the gut is probably the source of many of today's problems, as in psychological and physiological problems. Indeed, this is so well known now that Western medically trained doctors, only a few unfortunately, are retraining and further developing their knowledge of what's going on down here. We know, for example, that many of our organs carry neurons, the same neurons that are found up here that send messages around the body. Think of the gut feeling. Where do you think that comes from? Yeah, the message comes from down here before it enters up here. So do trust in your gut instinct. It really will be the truth in many respects. We know that the brain, for example, although it equates to 2% of the body's total weight, it requires 40% of the body's energy. So if what's going on in your gut is problematic, in other words, if the gut is finding it hard to break down food, then where do you think that energy is going to go? It's going to be poured into the stomach, and lo and behold, then you start feeling or experiencing brain fog or headaches, or you just feel like you can't really function that day, and that's only really because of what's going on down here. In fact, we now believe, I say we as in real scientist people, not me, believe that even things like cancer and various other serious and chronic physiological conditions stem from here. Much of autoimmune, of course, stems from down here. So fixing this, of course, is hugely important. But are you aware of that really important connection between the digestive system and the respiratory system? And in fact, it's such a crucial relationship that if the respiratory system isn't working correctly, your digestive system is going to suffer. So the respiratory system, if you've seen my Breathwork 101 or Breathwork Basics, then you'll have a bit of an understanding and you'll have some techniques that you maybe have dialed into your life already. If you haven't seen Breathwork Basics, it's just here. But although in those videos I would have told you about the importance of nose breathing over mouth, I may not have gone into further detail about why this is important. So when you breathe in oxygen through the nose, the body instinctively knows what to do with it. It has receptors that take that oxygen and transport it into the blood cells, where they then move through the body and exit the cells via a relationship with carbon dioxide, and then enter the tissues where we need it most. If we breathe through our mouth, which a lot of people do when they're stressed or anxious, or just people that unfortunately don't know about breath work, or just don't understand the relationship with this, or maybe have some kind of other respiratory problems, if you breathe through the mouth, that oxygen doesn't know where to go. Now, obviously, I'm applying a relationship here to that oxygen. I'm stating that it has a personality. That's kind of how I look at life, by the way. So let's imagine oxygen has a personality and it enters your mouth, and then it says, whoa, hey, where's the signpost? Where do I go from here? And then it just sits there. Some of it enters the body, but most of it doesn't enter the bloodstream. Where, of course, if it goes via the nose, and there's lots of other things that the nose does, then the oxygen knows where to go and is transported into the blood cells. And then with the relationship with carbon dioxide, it is then able to move into the tissues where we need it most. But here comes the relationship between the respiratory system and the digestive system. Cells require oxygen to metabolize food and assimilate that food and break down that food. So it makes sense that, for example, if you're not breathing correctly, maybe you're breathing through the mouth, or maybe if you are breathing through the nose, you're not taking a full breath, you're not taking in enough oxygen, then those cells won't have that oxygen relationship in order to break down food. And therefore, that problem is exacerbated over time by the simple fact that the food can't be broken down. So there we are. The relationship between breathing in and digestion can be explained very simply in that way. If we breathe correctly, we are aiding the digestive system. So let's now look at the full and complete breath. The full and complete breath will start at your base, the root in your stomach. But we'll come to that in a second. Typically, when people breathe incorrectly, or if they're stressed or anxious, they quite often breathe up here in the chest. So let's do that now together. Just breathe here. Now, what's interesting for me is when I breathe up here, I find it tricky because I've trained myself to breathe properly, and therefore all the other parts of my body that know how to breathe or be a part of that process also move as well. But for some of you, it may be easy just to breathe from up here. Let's apportion that as the first third. Then you've got the second third here. And by the way, we're going to reverse this in a proper breath. The second third here, the middle part of your body. And this is where the diaphragm sits. And the diaphragm sits sort of below the rib cage. Somebody once explained to me that imagine the organs have got eyes and they look up. That's what they're going to see. They're going to see the diaphragm as their sky. I know, a fun little analogy. But that's where the diaphragm is. We've got a rib cage here, fixed ribs at the top, what they call false ribs at the bottom, and these are ones which are flexible and they allow your diaphragm to move. But for a lot of people, those flexible ribs don't move because they're not breathing with their diaphragm. So let's try and breathe now in that middle section. You should feel, if you put your hands here, your diaphragm, these flexible ribs, moving outwards like this. Okay, good. And now let's look at the bottom third here. Now, for people that are new to breath work and they don't know that start of the breath should come from the belly, and actually when you breathe in, the belly should move out. So when you practice this for the first time, it's going to feel unnatural. It's going to feel weird. You're going to have to train yourself to do this. So what I want you to do is this: breathe in through the nose, and as you breathe in, allow your stomach to move out like this. Okay, now we're going to be putting all of these three sections together, but we're going to start at the bottom. So when you're ready, follow along and inhale through the nose, starting at the belly, stomach moves out, moving up to the diaphragm, and then finally up to the chest. Okay, now I'm exaggerating the whole move. You don't have to breathe like this with every single inhale. But it's important at this point just to exaggerate it so that you can feel it in the body. So let's do that again. And then exhale slowly through the nose. Equally, you could exhale through pursed lips. And by the way, that pursed lips breathing, in other words, breathing as if you're exhaling through a straw, allows you to control that exhale. It gives you a nice thin stream of air that you have more control over. Definitely worth exploring and experimenting with. You will have seen me talk about it definitely in Breathwork Basics. Now, what I want you to do is imagine now that you've got a deflated, very large balloon inside this whole cavity. In other words, imagine you've got room in there to fit a big old balloon in your stomach, into your chest area right up to the top. And imagine now that you are, or something is blowing it up. And the reason why I want you to imagine this is that in the same way that if you blew up a balloon, it wouldn't blow up in stages. It would be this ever expanding rubbery ball. And that's what I want you to imagine this breath to be. I don't want you to breathe in sections. I want this to be a very natural movement so that it's and by the way, it doesn't have to be that big either. When you learn how to breathe correctly, starting from the base and moving up to the top, you're going to get a full lungful of air. You don't have to do these big breaths, of course. So, by making sure that it's not done in jolty movements, you'll make this a more natural, smooth way of breathing. And this is the full and complete breath. It should simply be like that. And what you'll find is, when you teach this to yourself every day, you'll find that you start to breathe less. And that's really important. You don't need to keep breathing like that anymore. And you'll find that these breaths per minute will come down, and this is a good indicator of you increasing your health or improving your health. So there we are, the full and complete breath. Once you've got this dialed in, you will be optimizing your health. But like I said, it's fine learning this breathwork stuff. It's going to make a huge difference to your life, but there's no point just sticking with that. It's now time, once you've learned these breath techniques and you make it a part of your life that you do every day, that you also look at the other areas of your life as well. You've got to push, you've got to pull, you've got to lift, you've got to move, you've got to physically interact with other humans in a positive way, and you've got to eat correctly. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Do sign up if you haven't, and subscribe. Do give me a thumbs up too, because that really helps. If you have stuck with me these last few years, I really appreciate you being here, and I hope this is helping you. There's various different programs I'm going to be putting out. Indeed, there's one very much focused around trauma and transcending your trauma, which will be out in a few weeks' time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.